when your kids can't buy a house or even dream of buying a house, when they're buying DoorDash on credit, you're ripe for some kind of revolution. And the question is it a violent one? God forbid. Or is it a kind of sincere Bernie Sanders? But either way, you're going to get some kind of massive reaction to that, because that is a core human need. You can feel the hate coming off people or whatever. I would hear Obama talk, and I always really liked Obama before he became a senator, but I would hear him talk and be like, wow, that's animated by hate. And it would be in this is your captain speaking voice, but it didn't matter. I was like my dogs, like I could feel what was in him. And I feel very confident in my views. I like people, and I just feel that way. And I'm not gonna play the game where I have to be like, oh, actually my wife is part Jewish or whatever.
Final
which I could play, I'm not gonna do that. I think we should stand on principle. Don't punish the innocent. I don't care who you are. No one has a special dispensation that allows him or his country to punish the innocent. And if you do, I'm gonna call you on it. I think housing is like the core of kind of everything. You know, where you live is like one of the central questions of your life. I don't think it's actually about housing. It's about autonomy. Actually, both sides want to subvert it. The left is always talking about housing. The unhoused, as if the core problem with homelessness is we don't have enough, like, you know, Section 8 high density buildings or something. It's nothing to do with that. And the right talks about it like even to address the question is to sort of buy into the Mamdani program. You're a socialist or something.
Yeah.
And no, I think the material condition of your people is like a really big deal, and you should focus on it. It doesn't make you a socialist at all. I am not a socialist, obviously. And then they go too far. Like, I don't think, you know, building condos in Yellowstone either is the answer. We have way too many people in the country. So like the top line numbers really matter. How many people live here? Well, we don't actually know the answer.
Right.
Trump told me directly he thought it was 50 million. He's the president of the United States. He doesn't know how many people whose identities we don't really know live here, which is a little weird in a time of facial recognition. Like, I have to have my nose scanned to get on an airplane, but like, we don't know who's here. I call, but whatever, we don't know. But we do know that, and you know from traveling, that how many people a country has determines the nature of the country almost more than anything, right? I mean, this is kind of why, like, the places you go on vacation are not densely populated. So we need to articulate just like the obvious supply and demand principles out loud. Think about the devaluation of the dollar. I think about it's just not worth as much. And I know that in my own, I'm not an investor, I don't invest in anything, but in the things that I buy with an eye to retaining value, they're physical things. I just don't believe in any of this at all. And so I caught myself the other day, and I'm at such a low sort of level compared to everyone else here. I'm not especially rich, but like I had a little bit of extra money, and I'm like, it really was like the Weimar impulse, like, shit, I gotta buy something soon before
the dollar's worth less.
Yeah, I mean, everyone I know, and I live in a very rural area, and most of my friends are crazy, but people I know are thinking in terms of like land, gold, ammo. Right. Like, I don't think that water, I don't think that's, no, I mean, are you really laughing? No. Or are you tittering nervously? Because you know that's not insane.
That's right.
Like, in the end, I want to live in a society where people live in single family homes with little lawns that they own, that are not going to be taken away from them, like actual property rights, not theoretical property. It's like my house, okay? I want married people, and I want them to have children and grandchildren with the rough assurance, the future, of course, being fundamentally unknown, but rough assurance that, like, it'll kind of be the same. Radical change all the time drives people insane.
Yeah, but so it's not radical change to do.
It's not radical change, dude. I grew up in this city. I don't recognize it. I'm only 56. That's radical change. I feel like all of those nations, the Anglosphere specifically, but Western Europe in general, is poised for massive change, and I just hope it ends peacefully. But the story in the West is population change, period. That's the story. And following from that comes cultural and political change. And it's always painful. I don't think it's always bad, personally. But at the scale it's happened way too fast, and there will either be, you know, like a true reaction of the kind that none of us want to see, or there will be full totalitarian clampdown. I spent a lot of time in Europe for a bunch of reasons, and I have family there, and it's like, I was just there, and it's like, I can't even not believe this is happening.
How do we get to a place where every big social change is determined in the courts, and where the hell is Congress?
Right.
Yeah, we are in this weird phase where the Democratic Party really doesn't seem like a factor in the national conversation in American politics. All the real fights are between, are intra-Republican fights. Republican versus Republican, but that's got to be just a period, right, that we're in. What's interesting from just like a corporate governance point of view, like let's say I'm Mark Zuckerberg, seems pretty liberal, but not maybe a liberal activist, but you spend 4 years getting attacked for censorship and you never say, actually, well, he did ultimately say, but he didn't say for years, I'm only doing this because the Biden people are pushing me to do it. Like these companies were hurt by this.
How did America end up here, where unelected judges and bureaucrats call the shots, and Congress is little more than theater? Tucker Carlson rips into the collapse of trust in U.S. institutions. He warns that when moderates no longer believe anything, the system itself is at risk. From Brazil's Supreme Court dictatorship to America's Russiagate hoax, Carlson traces how lawfare replaced democracy. The Democratic Party has no vision, just Trump derangement and mass migration, while Republicans are left fighting among themselves. But beneath the chaos, the Overton window has shifted. The country is waking up. The old consensus is breaking. And Tucker argues the reckoning is only just beginning.
I just worry that people are losing all confidence in the system. And when people I know who are moderate and sensible, well-educated, smart, will believe anything at this point, just absolutely anything. And the reason they'll believe anything is because so many things they believed in turned out not to be true. And there was zero accountability and has been zero accountability for really anything other than January 6th that I'm aware of. And I just wonder if the people in, making the laws and crafting the regulation in Washington understand that the whole system at some point becomes at risk because the population's like, I don't believe anything. I just, there's a lot of emphasis on, people who are criticizing Bibi on college campuses and everything, which is fine. But I'm getting to the point, and I know a lot of the people, I run DOJ and I really like them and think they're decent people, and I agree with them on most things. However, like the BLM riots, censorship, like you got to get to the bottom of this stuff. Epstein, sorry to say it.
Yeah.
I know no one wants to hear it, but it's just not because I care that much about Epstein. It's like the perception, however, that some people are above the law is the most corrosive possible perception in any society. My concern is that Mamdani, who I think is I don't think much of him. However, I think his main appeal may be quality of life worries that people have. And do you think, I know this has been a big issue for you, but there aren't that many of you actually in the Senate talking about people's lives. Like somebody in power needs to address declining quality of life in this country, or else there will be a lot more Mamdanis. You see what has happened in Brazil. Bolsonaro lost a couple of years ago to a socialist, Lula, a convicted felon. And everyone imagined that Lula would, move the country hard left, which I think he'd like to do. But it's really been a Supreme Court justice who has made all the major decisions in Brazil ever since. I mean, basically, that country is run by a single Supreme Court justice in a way that's, it's a dictatorship.
Yeah.
How does that not happen here?
Well, I think we were perilously close to that happening here through lawfare, right? You just think of what, and we can get into it on the sort of the Russia hoax stuff, but what that did, it gave all the folks on the left a sort of a reason or a cause to undermine not just the president of the United States, but to spy on a candidate like they did. I think justice should be coming for the people that are involved. Brennan, Clapper, Comey. There should be indictments that come, because what they did to this country, not just for those 4 years, but it extended when Trump was, of course, out of office, and they tried to put him in jail for the rest of his life, bankrupt his entire family. The Hunter Biden laptop part of the FBI was very well aware. I mean, we took the deposition in Missouri versus Biden of Elvis Chan, who admitted that they had months and months of monthly meetings pre-bunking that story.
As honestly or sort of impartially or non-emotionally as you can you describe where you think the Democratic Party is going?
I don't think they've hit rock bottom yet.
Okay.
Actually, I think that you look at the people that are filling up the arenas. It's Bernie Sanders. It's AOC. It's this Mamdani guy who's literally a communist running. He's going to be the mayor of New York, probably.
Looks that way.
So I think they're still searching. They don't have a message. They don't have a messenger. They're still obsessed with President Trump, with Trump derangement syndrome. They've sort of learned nothing from the last go around with all of this. And, you know, just things that used to be, I mean, there used to be kind of a, by the way, a Washington consensus isn't always, it's usually a bad thing. But there used to be kind of a belief that borders were important.
Yeah.
I don't think they believe that anymore. I think if you really press the rank and file Democrat in Congress, they believe in mass migration. They don't think that lines on a map, they think that lines on a map are arbitrary.
They'll never win with that.
Right. I know. And I don't think they'll get away from it. So I think you saw some self-reflection after the election, but they're falling back into the same
Mass
old
migration has made everyone's life worse in this country.
It has. And I think that you look at the Overton window on that now versus 10 years ago when President Trump came down the escalator.
Yep.
It's pretty dramatic.
It is dramatic.
In a good way, right? So I think that oftentimes we get caught up in the daily news cycle. What is the thing of the day? But if we take a step back and we look at how the Republican Party has been transformed, how the country has sort of woken up from this fever dream, we talk a lot about in the book, like I think that's all positive.
Yes.
There's more work to do, but I'm optimistic.
I think that's wise. You're taking a bigger view of it, and a lot has changed. A lot.
A government that is not controlled by the voters or even the people the voters elect to control the government. It's controlled independently by the people who staff it and other aligned interests, not all of them American. So that is not a picture of democracy or even of oligarchy. It's a picture of something much darker than that. And people who point it out are roundly attacked and criticized, and their children are attacked. I mean, you know, anyone who's done this knows the consequences of doing it, but it doesn't make it any less true, actually. You can attack me all you want, don't really care. Why don't you answer the question, how does this work? And why can't I know? And if I can't know, who has greater authority than I do as a taxpayer and a citizen? What you're really revealing is that the system itself is utterly fake. Okay, I guess everyone knows that now, but what are the consequences of knowing that? The consequences of knowing that are dire and scary. And so I think at this very late date, we should try to fix it. And the only way to fix it is by telling people the truth and reading them in, as they say in Washington. Read me in to what my government is doing with my money in my name. And if you won't do that, then at a certain point, like, how is it not justified to try to replace the government? Like, that actually is tyranny. What's the other definition of tyranny? I don't, so they're really playing with fire. I don't want revolution. I can't stand violence. It's your country. It exists for your benefit. You have a right to know relevant things. You can't just be dismissed with the back of the hand and called names. It just makes me an American who's trying to think clearly about what our problems are. And our problems would include tens of millions of foreign nationals living illegally in my country. Nobody knows their identities. They would include a collapsing economy that makes it very hard for my children to have children and live the life that they grew up with and their friends and all American kids. Iran is not even in the top 10 list. So you can scream at me all you want and call me names and call me a bigot or whatever, but there's no evidence to support that. And so if the energy of the US government is focused on a threat that's not the primary threat to us, it is by definition ignoring threats that are. And that's a kind of negligence. And so I pointed that out. I was, roundly attacked. My family was attacked. Whatever. I don't care. It's true. And everyone kind of knows it's true. And being bullied by Ben Shapiro into pretending that it's not true, it's just not on the program for me at 56. I'm just not doing that anymore. I do think the UK, and I say this as, someone who is half English, I think it's like reached, or it is quickly reaching a point where democratic reforms are going to be pretty tough because of the demographic change. And that, of course, the point of importing all these people is to overwhelm the people who live there who disapprove of the program. So you don't have to care what they think because you just bring in new people and their will becomes like all that matters. And so I don't think you're gonna fix these things through elections at some point, probably pretty soon. And I just worry a place like the UK, Canada is another, a bunch of different countries in the West are at the point where they're literally revolutionary. They are poised for revolution. And as someone who really doesn't support revolution and hates violence and hates civil war above all, I'm worried about that.
If you enjoyed today's video on Anonymous Official, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching and sticking with us.